Daredevil Born Again is not season 4 of the Netflix show. Whether or not that's a good thing is up to you when you watch it, but I did enjoy it. There's a lot of things about Born Again that the Netflix show didn't have, or at the very least, I don't remember it. It did end in 2018. But this story is not a complete reinvention of the character. This is that same Matt Murdock and the same cast of returning characters, but they are not starting from where things ended in season 3. This is something different. Born Again functions as a sort of fast track to getting people up to speed with the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, and I think it does a good job of doing that, but there are some things that I think drag on the experience a little bit more than need be. There's just too many diversions that add very little to nothing to this reinterpret extension of the world that the show would be better without. Like, there's an entire episode about a bank robbery that's really just a cool distraction, but when you only have 9 episodes, I don't think that you have that much time to dedicate an entire episode to something that feels like it exists for just some MCU synergy that goes nowhere. By the time this episode happens, we know bank robberies happen in New York. We know Kingpin and now Vanessa have their hands in all types. So when their relationship isn't given the depth that I think it deserves, I don't think it's worth having this little side quest. In this season, we also got one of the worst uses of a villain in one of these shows that I can remember, with Muse. And usually I would save this for the character portion because he is a new character that should push Matt to his limits emotionally, physically, and superhero-ly, but nah, he's just a serial killer. No motivation, barely anything about his life prior to this, and he doesn't have the one thing that makes him interesting as a character, his inhuman, literally, ability to mess with Daredevil sonar. Here, he's just a dude. Muse should have been a villain that an entire season revolves around, and it really does suck that he's barely even a footnote here. Now, technically, they could include him again, but for reasons that are too spoilery for both the comics and the show, we'll just say that this version in this season is buns. One thing that I was nervous about after the end of the first episode was how they were adapting Kingpin's rise to the mayorship, because it also makes more sense and is way cooler in the comics. During Secret Empire, New York is covered in darkness, and Kingpin is one of the people actually keeping people safe. So when all that's over and things are back to normal, people have a much different opinion of Fisk because they've seen how he's been helpful and works to establish the, oh, maybe he's turned over a new leaf angle, which does sway some people. None of that happens here either, and while real life events prove that the average voter is dumber than you thought possible, after the end of this season, I'm not actually that hung up about it anymore. I thought it was pretty hand-wavy to just say, hey, Fisk is running for mayor now and he's got the people's back, when everyone's known him as a crime boss and it is still very hand-wavy. But I do like that we see both his progression as mayor and his retaking of the Kingpin position. It's a new Zero Day, and while they're obviously taking things from the previous seasons, I think this as a weird standalone thing makes more sense, and trying to compare this with the other ones just doesn't really feel right. But because I know how y'all like ranking things, I'd go season 2, season 3, Born Again, and then season 1. It does feel strange that there is only one real connection to the broader MCU, and especially with the way that this season ends, it felt like they were teasing some things, but I don't actually mind Daredevil operating smaller and more underground. Bringing the Defenders in would have been cool, but if they're focusing on establishing Daredevil in this universe, I don't think dropping more heroes into his show would actually work. But let's talk about the characters. For all the returning characters, so that's Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk, and John Bernthal as Frank Castle, since they were my favorite 3, everyone gives the performance you'd expect from them. Even though in Vincent's case, I did not remember his voice being so gravelly, and the first time he spoke, I did laugh. But I got used to it pretty fast, and with his demeanor and physicality carrying so much of the role anyway, it didn't bother me. Also, Matt, no, he keep a baddie with him, even if he literally can't help pushing them away. I was expecting more from Wilson Bethel, who played Bullseye, because I really enjoyed his performance in season 3, but here, he just really bookends this season, but I hope that that means he'll have a larger role in season 2. For all the newcomers, it's kind of whatever. I'm interested to see how Margarita Levieva's Dr. Glenn comes into conflict with Matt, given how their relationship ended. Question mark? Artie Frushin, who played Buck Cashman, which is a fire name, and I had no idea he was a character, is pretty good as Fisk's right-hand man. but not much more than that. Janaea Walton, who played BB, who I know is going to be great when season 2 comes out since she was great in the few actual scenes that she had here, and the person who I would say had the most character development out the new gen was Michael Gandolfini's Daniel Blake, who really surprised me as a kid getting into something he absolutely isn't ready for, to now being Fisk's, I don't know, left or third-hand man, I guess. His connection to BB is also going to be really interesting after what we learn in the finale. But let's talk about Fisk and Vanessa really quick, because I think their relationship here is a good encapsulation of this whole season. It's two people growing apart because they've changed, but coming back together once they've stopped going against their nature. Fisk becomes, accommodating isn't the right word, but he's more open to playing the game the way you're supposed to during the first few months of being mayor, while in his absence, Vanessa has become far more ruthless as she took on the kingpin position. And then once they settle back into their roles together, they revert back to who we knew them as while still carrying some of the baggage from their new roles. And I really like this dynamic. We also see this with Heather and Matt's relationship, and I think it all goes back to the whole point of the season with taking what happened prior, but still starting from scratch. It's very much a rebirth, and I think the show does a good job of that for the most part. But the last thing that I want to talk about is the style of this season, because I think it's really cool. Cinematic gets thrown around a lot. It doesn't really feel like the right word, but there are a couple things that really make this season stand out to me in a cinematic way. The first is the use of color. Now, this season is just way brighter than anything I remember of any other Daredevil media, and the use of color for certain things like Bullseye was done really well. I think the splashes of color really shine when they show up, even if it is used kind of sparingly. There's also some really dope shots in this that make you feel like you're watching some high-level shit, and then they just don't do it again for like 4 episodes. I think the show's good, even great in some spots, but don't expect this to be a true continuation. It's the start of something new, and I hope they continue on this trajectory because they've shown that they're not afraid to pull too many punches. Okay, I'm done.